Hey everybody, welcome back. We're in season 2, episode 11, right? And we're just finishing up on the season's stuff because remember, the first 12 episodes are going to be things that we go through in the seasons of our lives, things that are traits, right? And then we'll get to signs next. So today we're talking about curiosity. And I love this topic because I am and have always been insatiably curious. You can tell the hallmark of an insatiably curious person because they're always asking questions, which does sometimes get us in trouble. People don't like our questions. They don't want to answer our questions. It's fine when a kid is asking questions all the time, but as we get older, people tend to not enjoy it as much when adults do it, right? Because it's seen as defiant, or it's seen as undermining, or it's seen as like a lot of different things. But questions are how we learn. Questions are how we teach. Questions are how we grow, right? So curiosity is a good thing. If you are somebody like I was growing up who was not nourished in your questions because you asked too many, or you asked too difficult questions, or you talk too much, maybe, then I am here to tell you, not just because I am curious, but because curiosity is the gateway to the drug of knowledge, right? I'm going to say that again. Curiosity is the gateway to knowledge. If you want to learn, you got to ask, right? You got to put yourself out there and ask. And so, they say there's no such thing as a stupid question. And I think that's both true and false. There are questions that are stupid when they were just answered. It means that you're not paying attention, right? It's a stupid thing to ask a question that's already been answered because you weren't paying attention, right? It doesn't make the question stupid. It makes the context stupid. Like, what are we doing here? But as far as asking questions, I would rather have someone ask a question than never address it, right? And when I was teaching, I used to tell my kids that all the time. Like, normally when someone asks a question, it's because someone else didn't ask it and they needed it too. So question asking is one of our forms of learning. I mean, Socrates, the Socratic method was question asking. And I mean, I used to have Socratic seminars all the time with my kids where you literally start the dialogue with questions. Really watch. If you are in a conversation and you ask a question, it opens the conversation, right? What is this? Opens the conversation. If you tell someone something, this thing is, it closes the conversation. Questions open the door, right? To knowledge, to understanding, to so many things. So curiosity is an amazing thing. I know what they say, right? Curiosity killed the cat. Satisfaction kept it coming back, right? True, sure, fine. Curiosity can get you into trouble. Absolutely. Especially if you're a cat and you're trying to sniff in a fishbowl and like play in it and you like end up getting your face stuck in there. Yes, sure. Curiosity can get us in trouble. But the only way that we learn is by asking and then by doing, right? And so, yes, there are times definitely that curiosity can bring about questions or answers we wish we didn't have, right? We were like, damn, I wish I didn't know that. I wish I didn't find that out, right? But that still means you know. And the problem is, so many of us, we don't ask questions. We stop asking questions. We stop inconveniencing people, right? We are afraid to be vulnerable, so we don't want to ask the question. We don't want to look stupid, right? So you might have been that kid who you asked so many questions, your parents got impatient and they started like just telling you, shh, not now, not now, not now. And then it killed your natural childlike curiosity. Children learn by asking questions. That doesn't change when we get into adulthood. I don't know why we have this age gap cutoff where it's like, oh, okay, so now you're 18, you're supposed to have all the answers. No. That makes literally no sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. Of course, we still have to ask. It's why the most successful people have mentors, so they can ask questions so that they don't have to make the same mistakes. They can learn beforehand. It makes so much sense to do it that way, right? Here's the thing, though, right? Seek and you shall find, right? Knock and the door will be open to you. But make sure you're knocking on the right doors. Make sure you're seeking answers from the right sources. Because here's where the problem comes, right? Sometimes we are curious, but we don't pay attention to the source from which we are getting our knowledge. So we have to ask ourselves questions, right? We have to ask ourselves, like, has this person been through what I've been through? Do they have what I have? Do they believe what I believe? Why am I attracted to this person? Why did I come across their page, perhaps, right? You see those questions? We don't have that inner dialogue with ourselves. We just mindlessly consume. We're not very mindful. And so what ends up happening is we just take things at face value without exploring, without asking questions, without wondering why, right? And so it's one thing you should always be asking yourself, okay, ask those questions, be curious, but even about your source, be curious, which we're not. We don't do. And so check your source, check yourself. Questions. We always should be asking them. We should always be, why did I pick up this book? Why did I rent this movie? Why did I decide to go to dinner? Why did I decide to work out today? Right? We do not ask ourselves that. We don't ask ourselves questions. We don't ask questions outside to external sources, and we certainly don't ask ourselves questions. I know I did this for years, right? I just ignored myself. We're not curious about ourselves. And that's where all knowledge starts. Self-knowledge starts from looking and asking questions about ourselves. Why did I do that? Why did I say yes to that? What was I thinking? How did that happen? We don't stop and ask ourselves. So I did not stop and ask myself those questions until I was sitting in a jail cell at the age of 28. Why didn't I ask myself those questions for 28 years? Well, let's plus or minus 4, right? 23 years, right? Since I was 5, let's say. Why am I doing the things I do? We do not ask ourselves those questions. Oh, well, my mom wanted me to. That's a crap answer. Oh, well, I did it for my boyfriend. Crap answer, right? And we just don't have those dialogues with ourselves. We don't have those questions that we ask ourselves. Why am I feeling like this? Right? Why did that hurt me? We don't. What we do instead is shove. Curiosity. It's so good. It's so good. Can it get you in trouble? Absolutely. Yes. I'll give you a good example. Take it back 6,000 years. Book of Genesis, right? When we think curiosity, let's take it out of the Christian Bible, right? Pandora, Greek mythology, right? Women, usually, always, we're very curious creatures. We want to know everything. We want to understand everything, right? Pandora opened a box. Wrong box, shouldn't have opened it. Bad stuff came out, right? Eve had a conversation with Satan, wasn't supposed to talk to him, right? Had more than a conversation with him, if you actually know the real story. No, she didn't eat an apple, guys. That's not a thing. We could talk more about it, not here at this time, but just so you know, Eden was in the Mediterranean, Mesopotamia, in between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, 2 other rivers too as well, there's 4. And there's no apples there. Figs. There's figs, pomegranates, olives, Mediterranean foods, dates. There are no apples. Apples, of course, are symbolic of what? Knowledge. I'll talk about that in a couple weeks, actually, but apples are symbolic of knowledge. Satan in the garden is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? There was one person at that time who knew evil, and it was Satan, right? So she's having conversations with Satan. God says, don't talk to this guy. And she's like, well, Well, God told Adam, Adam told Eve, right? But Adam's tilling the ground all day, and Eve is like chilling by herself, right? And of course, idle hands of the devil's worship comes from way, way, way back. So curiosity can be an awesome thing, but it can lead to damaging results if we don't check our source out. And that's true for ourselves as well. We're the source of a lot of things. So if we don't check ourselves out, if we don't check our own source, the heck are we doing? Right? Curiosity, super, super, super important. And so I have to ask you, right? Of course, I'm asking you. I'm always asking you questions. Are you curious? Do you want to know? Do you wonder? Anything about yourself? About the world? Do you ask questions? Do you consider? Because if you don't, you've grown complacent. Curiosity is the opposite of complacency. Like, complacent people don't ask, don't think, don't wonder, don't question, don't do nothing. People who are, I don't want to say intelligent, because that's not necessarily the case, right? Children aren't necessarily intelligent, but they're learning. They want to grow. They want to learn more, right? People who are thirsty, people who are hungry for more, they're not complacent. They're curious. They have to know. They have to understand. They have to have a bite of that pie, right? Curiosity is such a cool thing, guys. So how can we be more curious? How can we cultivate curiosity, right? Brené Brown talks about like cultivating play. And it's so funny to me that all of these things that we need so desperately go back to our childhood, right? We just naturally play as kids. We naturally imagine, we create, we wonder, we ask questions. We get older and it gets tramped down, kicked out of us, and we forget how to do it. So how to cultivate curiosity, right? And really check yourself. Before we even start, right? Check yourself. Are you somebody who doesn't question anything? If you question nothing ever, right? Think about it. What's the last thing I questioned, right? Right there is a question, is a curiosity cultivating, right? What's the last thing I questioned? Why did I question it? We can get to that place. We can really start working, right? And so cultivating curiosity comes with checking in, reflecting in. That's what it comes from. And so, and once you get that curiosity, then you can start getting knowledge. You start understanding. So for me, always my first place, my first source, well, okay, actually no. As a Christian, my first source is God. But as taking that out, as an authenticity coach, our first source has to be ourselves, right? And so we know ourselves better than anybody else in the world. Actually, that's actually not true. A lot of us don't know ourselves at all. Not true. We should know ourselves more than anybody else. We don't, but we should. Right? So the first ways you really want to cultivate curiosity is to ask yourself, what do I want? It's like the hardest question. What do I want? Not material things. Oh, I want a house. Oh, I want a car. Oh, I want a husband. I want a wife. I want a good job. I want a this. I want a that. Not material things, right? What do you want out of life? Who do you want to be? Right? Those questions. What do I stand for? What do I believe in? Why do I believe in it? Right? Those are things. Those are things that we don't always ask ourselves, pay attention to, wonder about, And so when we don't ask ourselves, right? Why don't we? Usually it's been sort of beaten out of us because it's natural, right? All kids ask questions. That's a natural thing. Questions are natural. Complacency is not. It's very bizarre to do. It's a societal thing. Society demands complacency. Society, institutions, organizations demand compliance. That's another one, right? Curiosity and compliance don't always go together. Sometimes they do. I'm not saying they don't, because I've had it where, kids have asked me questions like, okay, why do I have to do this? I told them, I was like, ask me why. Because if I don't have an answer for you, you shouldn't be doing it. It doesn't make any sense, right? So you should ask why. And I told my kids that. And so sometimes they did. They're like, okay, why are we doing this? And I would give them what was at the time a very valid reason for why this is in play. And then they were fine. Super compliant, did it. They were fine with it. They're like, oh, that makes sense, right? When we ask questions, we get answers, right, that have to make sense to our heads, which sometimes that can be its own level of issue, which I won't get into right now. But when we ask those questions, which again is a natural process, and we get the answer, we feel better being compliant. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, yep, should have known. What ends up happening, though, is society, institutions, organizations, they don't want you to ask questions. That's how rebellion starts, right? No, that's how understanding starts. There's only a reason to rebel if the people who are in position of power are tyrants. You know what I mean? Like, open dialogue shouldn't harm anything. If anything, it should increase awareness and bring people together. People come apart when the dialogue is closed down. People come apart when they're ordered, not allowed to ask questions, right? Think about this, right? Think about it. If you're a parent, I'm not. I'm a former teacher, I'm not a parent. But if you tell your kid, clean your room, because this is my house and I say so, you opening up dialogue? No, of course not. You're tyrannical. And I don't mean to be rude there. It's a tyrant thing to do, to order people around, right? But if you say, well, why don't you want to clean your room? You've opened up a dialogue. And they have to think, well, I don't know why. Or I'm lazy. Or I actually like it this way, because it means that if my room is like in this state, I know where everything is. I don't know, right? I don't keep my room dirty, so I don't know. But when we ask questions, rather than demanding what we want on someone else, it opens the dialogue. Well, do you like having a dirty room? Do you like smelling? Because I don't understand. Help me understand. Now, insecure people cannot handle questions. Insecure governments will not handle questions. Insecure leaders are not really great leaders because they can't handle questions. That is how you know the hallmark of authenticity is people who can approach questions being asked them in an honest way. Interrelational transparency showcases authenticity. So if someone asks me a question, I'm not going to shy away from it. I never will. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to lose. I'm going to give you the answer to the best of my ability. It's why on my podcast, I always answer questions. It's why people who come at me on YouTube who ask me questions that are meant to be insulting, I'm still going to answer you. You asked the question. I'm glad you asked it. Maybe it's a low energy question and maybe it's, intended to insult, but I'm still going to give you an answer. Right? I appreciate that you asked the question. So, when it comes to our personal lives and our personal selves and what we can do to really start the journey of self-awareness, yes, you have to sit in your feelings and you have to feel to heal, but people don't understand what it means to sit in your feelings. It means to question and reflect on why you feel that way. What's going on for me right now? Right? There's so much we can talk about. And I'll be talking about curiosity all week. Love it. Such a huge fan of it. If you want to talk more about anything, one-on-one coaching, problems that you have with curiosity, comments, questions, concerns, find us on Instagram and DM us. You can put comments here. I just am not as quick on them. I love bringing this stuff to you guys. Can't believe we're almost halfway through season 2. I can't believe We're almost in spring. There's so many things that are so good, so much life coming here. But so excited to share curiosity with you, and I hope it's helpful. We'll talk soon.